Family is supposed to be sacred. Blood is supposed to be thicker than water. Those were the beliefs my grandmother instilled in me from childhood. Values I carried into adulthood like precious heirlooms. Until my own sister showed me how easily family bonds could be severed by greed. My name is Madeline. And for 32 years, I believed my younger sister Elise was my closest ally. We had weathered our parents' messy divorce, supported each other through college, and celebrated each other's victories. When our beloved grandmother Vivian passed away 3 years ago, leaving behind her Victorian home and a modest inheritance, we promised to honor her memory together. I could not have imagined how that promise would shatter in my hands. The morning everything changed was deceptively bright. Spring sunlight streamed through my apartment windows as I prepared for an important meeting at the marketing firm where I worked as creative director. My phone rang, Elise's name flashing on the screen. "Have you checked your email?" she asked without preamble, her voice oddly strained. "I have not had time this morning," I replied, wrestling with my blazer. "Is something wrong?" "Just check it when you can." The call ended abruptly. Hours later, when I finally opened my inbox during lunch, I understood her strange behavior. There was an email from Howard Blackwell, our grandmother's longtime attorney. "Dear Ms. Reynolds, I regret to inform you that the sale of your grandmother's property at 427 Maple Street has been finalized. As per the documentation provided, your sister Elise Reynolds has exercised her right as co-owner to sell the property. The proceeds have been distributed according to the 70/30 split indicated in the paperwork you both signed. Your portion of $126,000 has been deposited in your account. Please contact our office with any questions." I stared at the screen, blood draining from my face. This could not be right. We had never agreed to sell the house. Our childhood sanctuary, the place Grandma Vivian had specifically left to both of us to keep in the family. And what 70/30 split? The inheritance had been divided equally between us. With trembling fingers, I called Howard's office. "Ms. Reynolds," he greeted me solemnly when he came on the line. "I was expecting your call." "There must be a mistake," I insisted. "I never agreed to sell Grandma's house." A heavy pause followed. "We have the paperwork with your signature, dated 4 months ago. You transferred majority ownership to your sister and consented to the sale at her discretion." "That is impossible. I would never." "I can email you the documents immediately," he interrupted gently. "They appear to be in order, I am afraid." When the files arrived moments later, I felt the floor shift beneath me. There was indeed my signature, or what appeared to be my signature, on multiple pages. Documents I had never seen before, authorizing Elise to claim 70% ownership and sell the property whenever she wished. My signature had been forged. My sister had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. I left work early, driving to Elise's downtown apartment on autopilot. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When she opened her door, her expression shifted from surprise to wariness. "You sold Grandma's house," I said flatly, stepping past her into the expensively furnished apartment. "You forged my signature and sold our inheritance." Elise closed the door quietly. "I did what needed to be done. That old house was just sitting there, draining our resources on taxes and maintenance. We agreed to keep it in the family. We promised Grandma." "Grandma is dead," she cut in, her voice hardening. "And promises to the dead cannot pay for the future I want." I noticed then what I had been too shocked to see immediately. The new furniture, the designer clothes visible through her open closet door, the keys to a new Mercedes on the counter. "You stole from me," I whispered. "Your own sister." Elise had the audacity to look annoyed. "I did not steal from you. Your share is in your account. A third of what should have been mine." My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. "And the house was never supposed to be sold at all." She shrugged, a gesture so casual it took my breath away. "The paperwork says otherwise. Legally, everything is in order." "How could you do this?" Her eyes met mine, cold and unfamiliar. "Because I could. Because I have always been the one with bigger dreams while you were content with mediocrity. That house was wasted on your sentimentality." I stood there, staring at this stranger wearing my sister's face. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I could not process it fully. Without another word, I turned and walked out. That night, I did not cry. I did not scream. Instead, I sat in my darkened apartment, Grandmother Vivian's antique clock ticking steadily on my mantel, one of the few heirlooms I had taken when we cleared her house. The steady rhythm seemed to whisper to me, reminding me of Grandma's favorite saying, "Patience builds fortunes, haste builds regrets." By morning, anguish had crystallized into resolve. If Elise wanted to play with fire, she would learn how badly it could burn. My first step was information gathering. I requested every document related to the sale from Howard Blackwell, who seemed troubled by my insistence that the signatures were forged. Next, I contacted a forensic handwriting expert recommended by a colleague, whose divorce had involved disputed signatures. "It is good work," the expert told me after examining the documents, "but definitely fraudulent. The pressure points and hesitation marks are inconsistent with your natural signature." Armed with this preliminary finding, I hired Marcus Chun, an attorney specializing in fraud cases. His reputation for ruthless efficiency was well earned. "We could go directly to the police," Marcus advised during our consultation. "But there might be a more comprehensive approach." "I am listening," I replied. "Your sister did not just commit forgery. If she deposited those funds, we are potentially looking at wire fraud as well. But beyond criminal charges, there could be other vulnerabilities in her life where justice might be served." I nodded slowly. "I want her to feel the full weight of her choices." "Then we need to understand exactly who we are dealing with," Marcus said. "People who betray family rarely do so as an isolated incident." The investigation into my sister's life revealed ugliness I had never suspected. Elise had been fired from her previous job for financial irregularities, a euphemism for embezzlement that had been quietly handled to avoid public scandal. She had maxed out credit cards in our grandmother's name months after her death. Her new startup fashion business, which she had claimed was thriving, was actually drowning in debt and questionable accounting. Most disturbingly, she had been systematically stealing from me for years, accessing my personal accounts using information only a sister would know, skimming small amounts I had never noticed. The betrayal was not new. It was merely the culmination of years of deception. Phase 1 of my response began with documentation. I compiled every fragment of evidence into a meticulous case file. The forensic handwriting analysis, bank records showing suspicious transfers, credit inquiries made in Grandma's name after her death, statements from her former employer obtained through Marcus's connections. Next came strategic positioning. I transferred all my remaining assets to new accounts at different banks. I changed every password, security question, and access point that Elise might have knowledge of. I reported the identity theft and fraudulent activity to credit bureaus and placed alerts on my accounts. While securing my finances, I quietly reached out to Howard Blackwell again, this time presenting the evidence of forgery. The elderly attorney was visibly distressed. "I have known your family for decades," he said, removing his glasses to rub his eyes. "Your grandmother would be heartbroken." "Which is precisely why this cannot stand," I replied evenly. "But I need your discretion for now. There are additional matters to address before we proceed officially." Howard nodded reluctantly. The transaction could potentially be voided if fraud is proven, but the new owners, have they taken possession yet? "Not for another 6 weeks. They agreed to a delayed closing to accommodate your sister's request." I filed this information away. "Please do not alert Elise to our conversation." Phase 2 involved Elise's business partners. Her new boutique fashion brand, Elise Designs, had 3 wealthy investors who had bought into her carefully crafted image of exclusive designs and ethical production. Through Marcus's network, I arranged meetings with each investor separately. "I am afraid I have concerning information about Elise Designs that you should be aware of before your next funding round," I told the first investor, Rebecca Winters, over coffee. I presented evidence that Elise was outsourcing production to sweatshops while claiming ethical manufacturing in her marketing materials. To the second investor, I demonstrated how Elise had misrepresented sales figures and grossly inflated the company's valuation. To the third, I revealed documentation, showing she had used their initial investment to pay personal debts, rather than company expenses. Within 2 weeks, all 3 investors had initiated emergency audits of the company. Phase 3 focused on the house itself. Through Howard, I made anonymous contact with the buyers, a young family excited about their first home. I explained the situation candidly, offering documentation of the fraud. I do not wish to disrupt your lives, I assured them. But this property was never legally sold. I can offer you 2 options. Walk away with all your money returned plus an inconvenience fee. Or wait until this plays out legally, which could take years. They chose the first option wisely. Meanwhile, Elise remained completely unaware of the noose tightening around her. She had blocked my calls after our confrontation, and I made no attempt to breach that silence. Patience was my ally now. Phase 4 was timed precisely. On the morning Elise was scheduled to meet with her increasingly suspicious investors, I filed formal complaints with the police department, the district attorney's office, and the state banking commission. Marcus had prepared everything meticulously. The charges were comprehensive and damning. I did not warn her. I did not threaten or posture. When 2 detectives appeared at her office during the investor meeting, the shock on her face was genuine and complete. Later that day, as news of her arrest spread through our social circle, I received frantic calls from family, friends, and distant relatives. "Did you know about this?" they asked. "How could this happen? I am as shocked as you are," I replied, the lie smooth on my tongue. Elise and I have not been close recently. While Elise spent an uncomfortable night in jail before her arraignment, I visited Grandma's house, technically mine again, now that the fraudulent sale had been voided. I walked through the empty rooms, memories echoing in each corner. By morning, I had made my decision. When Elise was released on bail 2 days later, she found her apartment locked, her belongings in storage, and her business in receivership. Her investors had pulled out completely, filing their own lawsuits. Her reputation in the industry was destroyed, most devastating for her image-conscious sensibilities. The story had made the local news, with her mugshot prominently featured. She called me then, desperation evident in her voice. "Madeline, please. I need your help. This is insane. They are saying I could face years in prison." "That does sound serious," I replied calmly. "You have to tell them it was a misunderstanding. A family matter we can resolve privately. The way you resolved the sale of Grandma's house privately?" Silence stretched between us. "You did this," she finally whispered. "You orchestrated all of it." "No, Elise. You did this. I merely ensured there were consequences." "They seized everything," she said, her voice breaking. "I have nothing left." "How appropriate. That is exactly what you intended to leave me with, nothing that mattered." She began to cry then, the manipulative tears that had worked on our parents, on teachers, on boyfriends throughout her life. "We are sisters. Family is supposed to forgive. Family is also supposed to be trustworthy," I countered. "You made your choice." I ended the call and blocked her number. The criminal case proceeded with methodical precision. Elise's lawyer attempted to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was overwhelming, and the prosecutor, a woman whose own sister had died recently, leaving her with a profound appreciation for family bonds, was disinclined toward leniency. In the end, Elise was sentenced to 4 years for multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Her perfectly curated social media accounts went dark. Her fashion empire collapsed completely. The glamorous life she had built, partially on my inheritance, disintegrated. While she served her time, I focused on healing. I renovated Grandma's house, preserving its character while updating its systems. I established a scholarship fund in Vivian's name at the local community college, where she had taught literature for 30 years. I advanced in my career, eventually becoming partner at my firm. 3 years into her sentence, I received a letter from Elise. The handwriting was thinner, less confident than I remembered. "I have had a lot of time to think," she wrote. "I cannot undo what I did, but I want you to know I understand now what I destroyed. Not just your trust, but the last connection to our family that either of us had. There is no excuse for my actions. I was consumed by wanting more, by resenting that you seemed content with what we had while I always hungered for what we did not. I do not expect forgiveness, but I needed to acknowledge the truth. I read the letter several times, searching for manipulation for an angle. Finding none, I placed it in my desk drawer without replying. 6 months before Elise's release, I made my final decision about Grandma's house. I had it appraised, photographed, and listed with a respected real estate agent. It sold within weeks to a family with 3 children, who loved its winding staircase and secret reading nooks, as much as Elise and I once had. The day of Elise's release, I did not meet her at the prison gates. Instead, I had a package delivered to the halfway house where she would spend her first 3 months of freedom. Inside was a certified check for exactly half the proceeds from the house sale, a copy of the transaction documents, and a brief note. This is your legitimate share. Nothing more, nothing less. Grandma would have wanted us both to move forward. I included a key to a small storage unit containing family photographs, mementos, and the few pieces of furniture I had saved for her. Not forgiveness, but perhaps the beginning of whatever might come after betrayal. That evening, my phone rang, an unfamiliar number with the halfway house's area code. I let it go to voicemail. Thank you. Elise's voice was rough, unpolished. I do not deserve this. I know that. There was a long pause. You could have taken everything, she continued. You could have left me with nothing, the way I tried to leave you. The fact that you did not, it means something. I cannot ask for your forgiveness yet. Perhaps not ever. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what Grandma meant when she said true wealth is measured by how you treat those who have wronged you. I saved the message, but did not return the call. 3 months later, as I prepared to leave for a well-earned vacation to Portugal, a trip Grandma Vivian had always dreamed of taking, I received an email from Howard Blackwell. Elise came to see me, he wrote. She has signed a formal confession to all her actions regarding the forgery and fraudulent sale. She asked me to tell you she has enrolled in a paralegal program and is working with a nonprofit that helps families affected by white-collar crime. She said to tell you she is trying to balance the scales, though she knows they may never fully balance. I closed my laptop and finished packing. As I placed Grandma's antique compass in my carry-on, my talisman for journeys, I reflected on the nature of family, betrayal, and justice. Elise had chosen greed over blood ties, deception over trust. Her punishment had been severe but proportionate. My response had been calculated, but ultimately tempered by something Grandma would have recognized. The understanding that revenge that destroys us both is no victory at all. On the flight to Lisbon, watching clouds drift below, I finally allowed myself to contemplate a future where Elise and I might someday speak again. Not as the sisters we once were. That relationship had died with her betrayal. But perhaps as 2 people who shared history and blood, finding a careful new path forward. I did not know if I would ever fully trust her again. I did not know if she had truly changed, or merely adapted to her diminished circumstances. But I knew Grandma Vivian would have said that holding on to anger forever costs more than letting it go eventually. The plane descended through layers of cloud toward the Portuguese coast. Behind me lay a betrayal that had nearly broken me. Ahead lay Grandma's dream journey, which I would experience for both of us now. And somewhere between past and future was the wisdom she had tried to teach us both. That family could wound you more deeply than anyone else precisely, because they mattered more than anyone else. Justice had been served. The accounts had been balanced. And if not forgiveness, then at least I had found peace. The kind that comes not from forgetting betrayal, but from refusing to let it define everything that follows. As the plane touched down on foreign soil, I made a promise to myself. This would be the last time Elise's betrayal would occupy my thoughts during this journey. Grandma Vivian deserved better from me. Perhaps in time we all did.